You're on Team Human, conscious intervention in the machine. This is where we break the trance, expose the false boundaries, and find the in-between spaces where human beings share common ground. This is everyone's Earth we're standing on, together. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and I'm on Team Human. Today, I want to talk about breaking the fascistic state of mind. I know many people right now are concerned with what feels like the encroachment of fascism or authoritarianism on our government. And that fear, that reality, is definitely something to reckon with. I'm not suggesting it's not real or that it's not urgent, but I do think it's part of something greater, something that might require even more of our collective attention at this moment. I'm less concerned right now with fascism as a philosophy or a form of government than I am fascism or authoritarianism as an environment in which human beings are attempting to operate. The easiest way for me to express it is as a digital or quantized environment where everything is a 1 or 0, yes or no, right or wrong, us or them. Now, that sounds pretty old school tribal, yeah, but it's different. It hasn't been a part of the air we breathe, the environment through which we walk, the logical systems we attempt to employ simply to think or to feel. And that's what I'm looking to address here, this pervasive atmospheric quality that is biased toward these distinct boundaries between people and their feelings and their ideas and their origins. These are boundaries that are not real. They're artifacts of thought systems made all the more distinct by the digital. And while binaries and quantized units may have been useful in certain forms of math or science or engineering or even the law, when we apply them to our society as ideals rather than the oversimplified compromises that they do a lot of damage. They erode the subtle connections and resonances between us. They undermine our capacity for rapport, and they transform solidarity from a way of connecting to a way of distinguishing one side from the other. Reality is complex. And in that complexity come all of the subtle, unnoticed, but essential collaborations for life to occur. It's the tangle of root structures beneath the ground, the dance of pollens and insects in the air, and the thousands of subconscious cues on our faces and our bodies that we offer to each other every time we're up close. You know what I'm talking about. There are no words. Poets have been trying to put it into words, actually between the words, since poetry began. There's not much poetry today, though, is there? That may be because its fundamental premise, that there is more going on here than we can name or label, isn't compatible with the metrics or values of this quantized world. Since Francis Bacon and empirical science, which sought to identify things by killing, labeling, and measuring them, if it can't be quantified, it doesn't exist. Like in business, your goals have to be expressed in metrics. And that's where global nonprofits and even the United Nations get into trouble. Their 17 sustainable development goals, clearly defined metrics, they don't add up to more than the sum of their parts. And at some point, it just comes down to just be caring, okay? Love. It's not quite on the lines, which is why it's having so much trouble in the digital environment. It's hard to express the texture and values of the analog media environment to those who weren't alive for it. It's funny. Back in the 90s, my job was explaining the digital to people from the analog era. Now, it's explaining the analog to those in the digital era. No matter how digital our media, the real world we live in is still analog. I mean, our technologies may have always been a bit digital, but if you can believe it, until recently, our media and technology used to accommodate the analog sensibility. Like the channel selector on an old analog TV, it was a dial that had physical clicks at approximately each station, like. But then it had a fine-tuned knob to get you to the exact frequency of the broadcast. I mean, radio was entirely like that, a smooth dial, and you'd listen to sort of find and narrow in on the station. Now, with digital tuning, with buttons and numbers, it's a great thing. You get the exact frequency. It's perfect. But it's not a great model for tuning into other people. You lose something when you have to conform to the quantized line, those subtle resonances that allow one thing to find another thing. You don't really have to understand digital to get what I mean here. I mean, think back to the invention of the piano and what it did to our understanding of notes compared to, say, the voice or the violin. On the piano, the A flat and the G sharp, they're the same key, right? The same button. But in music, they're slightly different notes. That's because when it's an A flat, it has to fit perfectly into certain chords. But when it's a G sharp, it has to fit perfectly into other chords. The relationship between all the notes is different. But the piano turned analog, continuous human instruments into push buttons and had to make compromises. So you split the difference between an A flat and a G sharp, and it's kind of good enough. But the power of the chords, the relationships between all those notes, that gets diminished. The notes, they can't find each other. So the resonances, those magical octaves and harmonics and overtones above them, they won't manifest. It's called equal temperament, but what it really means is less temperament, less relationship, less collective power. The support between the individuals and the chording is sacrificed to the quantizing of the notes. I was on the subway the other day. Someone across from me said, "Hey, you're the Kobe dryer sheets guy." Well, not exactly. I am the Kobe dryer sheets guy, or one of them, but it was actually a Team Human listener who was asking, why the heck are you hawking dryer sheets on Team Human? And it's weird. I was like, did you listen to the ad? And you'd know. I've been looking for a sponsor for like 10 years is the thing. And I couldn't find a sponsor that I could actually speak about honestly because they were doing awful things. And this guy, Tom, who makes Kobe dryer sheets, actually cares about the world. This is a product that's meant to be the first step in our reclaiming industry and consumerism for people and the environment and the earth. So these are 100% biodegradable, natural, environmentally soundly made dryer sheets, and the beginning of what I'm hoping is a consumer revolution against crap and plastic and evil and toward good. When everything in our world is quantized, reduced to 1, 0, yes, no, it too easily devolves into right, wrong, or us and them. We can't imitate the chords and collectivity because there's always some phase. We can't get that magical feedback and mutual amplification. There's no additive harmonics. We can't get close to anything tantric at all. There's no true union. We end up in individual survival mode, alive or dead. And it prevents us from seeing the humans on the supposedly other side. Now this part may be hard to get, or at least to see one's own part in. I mean, it's taken me a really long time to admit how I do it in my own punk-ass Gen X, but ultimately bullshit way. And it only became really clear to me a couple of weeks ago when I was asked to speak at kind of a feel-good business conference. Now, these were nice enough people, very loving, quasi-Buddhist business people who really want to do regenerative stuff and steer their businesses toward social good. Or maybe they just want to do their penance for a weekend and go back to their social media plans on Monday morning, or probably both. So they slotted me in for late the first night of the conference to do a kind of improvisatory response to the rest of what was discussed that day. They called it Douglas Rushkoff Stand-Up. And I know what they meant, like, stand-up comedy or maybe even stand-up philosophy, an entertaining and thoughtful nightcap. But I figured I'd take the term stand-up in the other sense, like stand up to power, stand up for what I really believe. So I told them that if what I say is too harsh, they should consider it as stand-up comedy and not worry about it any more than a king listening to his jester. I proceeded to tell them how I'm just allergic to business. I blame business for commandeering the internet and turning it from a psychedelic playground into an extractive feudal empire. I mean, you know the story by now. I discovered the internet along with people like Timothy Leary, who saw in digital technology an opportunity to unleash the collective human imagination, to create totally new possibilities for connection and imagination and novelty. And then a few Dutch intellectual libertarians came to Silicon Valley to launch Wired magazine, which reframed the whole thing as a business opportunity. And so tech development went from increasing human possibility to increasing human predictability. We human beings became rats in a digital maze. Instead of getting a new psychedelic reality, we got the bad trip we're living in today. But to be honest, it was not business itself that was the problem. It's that Wired and its digital libertarians were promoting a certain kind of business. They weren't simply trying to do commerce. They were committed to exponential growth. Google, they weren't doing much damage as a search engine. It was kind of cool. And the company's motto was still, don't be evil. It only got awful when the VCs funding the company demanded more exponential growth. And then they had to start mining our data and using algorithms and addicting us to YouTube and all that. It was this meta kind of business, this need to grow the business rather than simply doing commerce, doing financialization, selling stocks and derivatives and other abstractions of business rather than just some goods or services to actual people. And to be honest, the aspects of the digital society that I valued weren't intrinsically any more pro-human. That's been my big mistake, and I'll own up to it. I thought of psychedelics as intrinsically liberating. And that's because pretty much everybody I knew in college who tried mushrooms or LSD had similar realizations. We're all connected. Life is love. The trees can feel us. The planet is alive. But the world's wealthiest tech bros take psychedelics and they have an entirely different trip. It's showing them dreams of monarchy and feudalism and leaving the earth behind. And sadly, I've had to accept that a tech bro on acid is just a tech bro on acid. And that's because psychedelics are what we could call non-specific amplifiers. And technology too. College professors, deadheads, and fantasy role players, we saw digital technology as a new way to model new realities. But a lot of the boys developing technology saw it as a path to safe isolation and perfect individuality. They made an iPhone, not an us phone. They were using the set and setting of Francis Bacon to quantify and quantize an otherwise scary, unpredictable, and messy reality to them. See, reality was complex, but digital technology would render it merely complicated. Problems that could be solved, reduced to that one A flat on the piano. So technology, like finance, would be a way of going meta on this complex cesspool of fecund life. Like Peter Thiel's book title, it would let them go from 0 to 1. So neither technology nor psychedelics are intrinsically pro-social. They are non-specific amplifiers. It depends what you bring to them, right? Whatever you intend, whatever you bring will get amplified. And in explaining all that to these people, I decided to grant my lifelong nemeses in business the benefit of the doubt. I accepted that business, too, is a non-specific amplifier. Mike has a sushi restaurant, and cultural appropriation aside, he loves making sushi and serving it to people, and it's fine that he gets paid for it. That's a business. The guy who sponsors this podcast, Tom, makes dryer sheets. And even aside from the biodegradability and his dreams of saving the earth, he sells them for a profit. That's commerce. Many business people mean well at first. But if their intentions pivot and they go meta on their business, that's when things go bad. It's that abstractification. Is that even a word? It's that abstractification that makes any pursuit vulnerable. We focus on the figure instead of the ground, metrics, quantities, quantized units instead of holistic complexity. And we can all do that, even those of us on the pro-cultural weird fringe. I myself had reduced business people to a single pole of anti-cultural yuppie scum who had to be stopped, rather than a complex group of humans with an infinity of different intentions. I had succumbed to the same abstracted binary thinking of this digital fascistic environment. It's easy to in a digital environment where the other notes on the piano have been reduced to quantized approximations, no longer free to find their resonance with each other. It's a world where we operate by reducing complications rather than embracing complexity. A world of traffic lights dictating stop or go, rather than traffic circles that orchestrate our intentions into a cooperative swirl. And it drives us toward an almost eugenic-like outlook, where everything is either better or worse, right or wrong. We use our technologies to amplify selection, natural or otherwise. And it has generated the environment in which we live. We are each in touch with something real and vital, but it's not recognized by the supposedly other side. Take the environment, climate change. We have scientific proof and all, but more than that, those of us who recognize climate change share a deeply felt sensibility that we're killing the planet, that there's something calling out to us. And the other side can't even see or feel it. To them, our sacred truth is a new world order conspiracy to control people. And they have sacred truths too, ones that we can't see or feel. I mean, I always side with a woman's right to choose what goes on in her body. And I see any effort to restrict abortion as part of a long history of male domination over female agency. Yet, I have neighbors who see a sacred human soul in the gamete that needs to be protected by any means necessary. Kobe dryer sheets are the first in a line of products intended to change the relationship of consumers to the destruction of the planet on which we live. Our consumption of stuff doesn't have to be extractive. It could be part of regenerative cycles of use. And what that depends on are companies that are actually willing to look not at something end to end, but at something in a circular fashion. And Tom, the guy that makes Kobe dryer sheets and soon to be diapers and laundry pellets and all sorts of other products, is thinking about it that way. How does the end of the product lead back to the beginning? How can consumer energy actually be part of the regenerative cycle of the planet? I mean, nobody yells at an ant for eating something and pooping it, or a mushroom for metabolizing something, right? That's part of the entropic system of the way life regenerates. Well, the stuff we use and make can be part of that cycle. Everyone's Earth is figuring that out, and Kobe dryer sheets is their first try. So join the Kobe family. They're on Team Human, and they're on everyone's Earth. We each treat the other as crazy or evil, woke or fundamentalist, not as human beings struggling with the already faulty social construct of a state having authority over our actions. What if we applied this sensibility to the other side on the Middle East conflict? Two sides warring because the obsolete, boundaried institution of the colonial nation state is not up to the task of enabling the self-governance of a multitude of people. Or tariffs. Wasn't it us progressives arguing for limitations on international trade at the WTO protests of 1999 or Occupy Wall Street in 2011? These are not simple binaries. Our current inability to engage with the subtleties, the paradoxes, and the contradictions, the complexity, is a symptom of our quantized state of mind. And it makes us vulnerable to the authoritarian or totalitarian urge to take a no-compromises approach to the civic and political spheres. I mean, we've been through this one before. The peak of the industrial age brought us to the punch cards of IBM, which allowed people to be sorted numerically. We got industrial scale extermination at both Auschwitz and Nagasaki, and millions of people rationalizing what their nations were doing, succumbing to the eugenic mindset that allows us to see the other side as less than human, and in a different category altogether. The same way, this digital reductionism of human complexity and spirit makes us all vulnerable to the Trump mindset, apocalyptic thinking, and the battle of wills. Compromise is off the table. And compromise isn't even the right word. It's like centrism, an attempt to navigate a path that neutralizes both sides. It's more like a yellow light. And like the color yellow suggests, it reeks of cowardice. That's because it's not about leaning into one side or the other or finding some perfect compromise between them. They're all abstractions, sides. If we're going to be on a side, we want to be on the side of the people, of living things. Breaking down politics and social justice into issues, or even the UN Sustainable Development Goals, it's totally well-intentioned, but a product of this industrial age digital model. Find the metrics to measure so we know if we're doing well. But it short-circuits our intuitive sense of whether and how we're acting out of compassion. It's what leads to extreme forms of utilitarianism, justified with math, like effective altruism, which argues that the trillions of post-human life forms that will one day inhabit the universe, they matter more than the mere 9 billion humans who are alive today. And we can treat this world and its people as fuel for those who are wealthy enough to get to space and seed the heavens. I mean, some of the folks who think that way are hanging out in the White House right now. And their thinking and their technologies are setting the tone for the rest of us. In fact, the abstracted digital environment in which their authoritarianism thrives, it disables the very features of our humanity that would allow us to transcend these boundaries, these binaries. Their power over us depends on their ability to keep us divided and fearful or even hateful of one another. mean, we still have to fight against the injustices being done to other people right now. We cannot allow folks to be snatched off the street and sent into detention camps, no matter how other or dangerous they are made out to be. But the bigger job before us is to rehumanize our environment by dissolving the quantized, abstracted, separated nooks into which we've been filed. It prevents us from finding our resonances with other people who may not happen to reside in the same nook. Rather, we need to unite around practical, real-world activities and mutual aid. If that sounds too commie, call it favors or helping out. It's so easy to break faith over our perspectives on issues, binaries, and metrics. But if we know our neighbors as people first, and watching the news, yeah, sure, stay informed, but the picture we see of the other side on the screen is an intentional reduction. The clips of our adversaries, and I don't mean our leaders who are crazy, but real people, they're chosen for their ability to inflame and radicalize. That's because the abstracted business models of media companies, which are tech companies, have little to do with providing us with the news we need to understand, much less resonate with each other. Because if we learn to resonate, we have power. I mean, politics may be downstream of culture, as Gramsci and later Bannon observed, but solidarity is downstream of rapport. And we only get to that rapport if we recognize fascism or authoritarianism or eugenics less as an ideology to fight than an environment that affects us all. We can feel it. It's an atmosphere, but we don't have to submit to its terms. My name is Douglas Rushkoff, and I like smelling Kobe dryer sheets because they're like these essential oils. It's like going to a mushroom ceremony in a kind of a cool New Age retreat in Woodstock. That's the feeling of Kobe dryer sheets. They are at once, I'm sure, sanitary and good for your laundry, but they're also quite psychedelic. And when you're tripping, you don't want to worry about whether the things you're doing are like screwing up the planet or hurting labor or leading into giant landfills of crap. And you don't have to worry about that when you're tripping on these dryer sheets. So join me. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and we're all on Team Human.